The night is quiet. The air feels still, almost as though the world itself has decided to move a little more slowly. Somewhere beyond the darkness, a river continues its endless journey. Gentle water brushes against soft banks of mud. Reeds bend with the light breeze. Tiny insects hum for a while before the sound slowly fades into silence again. Imagine standing there without speaking. The stars stretch across the Egyptian sky like countless little lamps, steady and patient. They have watched this land for thousands of years. They have looked down upon kings whose names have almost disappeared into time. They have watched farmers waiting for the yearly flood. They have watched fishermen guiding small boats across calm water before sunrise. But tonight, our attention quietly settles somewhere much smaller. Not inside a grand palace. Not beneath the shadow of towering stone monuments. Instead, we walk toward a simple village where ordinary hands shape something that almost everyone uses, yet very few people stop to admire. A clay pot. It seems so ordinary. A round jar standing beside a doorway. A bowl resting near a cooking fire. A water vessel cooling quietly beneath a shaded roof. These humble objects rarely become famous. They are not covered in gold. They do not carry the glory of temples or royal tombs. And yet, without them, daily life in ancient Egypt would have been almost impossible. Every family depended on pottery. Every meal touched pottery. Every journey carried pottery. Every marketplace displayed rows upon rows of carefully shaped vessels waiting for new homes. Long before sunrise each morning, while much of the village remained asleep beneath woven blankets, the pottery makers were already beginning another quiet day. Their work demanded patience more than strength. Clay refused to hurry. Water refused to obey careless hands. Fire rewarded only those who understood its slow and careful nature. Nothing about pottery could be rushed. That is where our story begins. Not during a celebration. Not during a battle. Simply on an ordinary morning that looked very much like yesterday, and would probably look very much like tomorrow. The eastern sky slowly changes. Dark blue softens into pale gray. Soon gentle shades of pink begin spreading across the horizon. The Nile reflects every color with quiet grace, turning the surface into a moving ribbon of light. The village slowly wakes. A rooster calls somewhere beyond the houses. Goats begin moving inside their small pens. A child turns over beneath a linen blanket before opening sleepy eyes. Smoke rises from the first cooking fires. Someone grinds grain with steady hands. Someone else walks toward the river carrying empty jars. The entire village seems to breathe together. Among these early risers lives a potter named Mina. His name is not recorded on temple walls. No statue honors his life. No royal scribe writes about his daily routine. But people like Mina quietly helped keep Egypt alive. Without craftsmen like him, homes would lack storage vessels. Granaries would struggle to protect grain. Oil could not be safely stored. Beer would spoil. Water would be difficult to carry across long distances. The simplest object often carries the greatest responsibility. Mina knows this well. He steps outside his modest house before the sunlight reaches the rooftops. The morning air still feels pleasantly cool. He pauses for a moment. Not because he is lazy. Simply because he enjoys these peaceful moments before work begins. Birds sing softly from nearby palm trees. A donkey shakes its head, making the small bells around its neck gently ring. Far away, someone laughs quietly. Soon the village will become busy. But not yet. For a few precious moments, everything remains calm. His wife has already prepared a simple morning meal. Fresh bread. A handful of dates. Perhaps some onions. A little cheese if the household has enough. Nothing luxurious. Nothing wasteful. Just enough to begin another day. He eats slowly. No one rushes breakfast. There is little reason to hurry when the work itself cannot be hurried. Clay will not become softer because someone feels patient. The river will not flow faster because someone wishes it. The sun will rise at its own pace. So the people learn to live at the same gentle rhythm. After finishing his meal, Mina gathers the tools he will need. They are surprisingly few. A wooden paddle polished smooth by years of use. Simple cords. Small carving tools. Flat stones. Pieces of cloth. A woven basket. Nothing expensive. Most have been repaired many times. Handles have become darker from countless hours held by working hands. Some tools belong to his father. Perhaps even his grandfather before that. Good tools grow older together with their owners. The workshop itself stands only a short walk from his home. It is little more than a shaded shelter supported by wooden posts. The roof is made from bundles of reeds. Sunlight slips through tiny openings, painting soft patterns across the packed earth floor. Shelves line one side. Rows of finished pots quietly wait. Some are tall enough to reach a man's waist. Others fit comfortably into two hands. Each one looks slightly different. No two pieces are perfectly alike. That is one of the quiet beauties of handmade pottery. Every vessel carries tiny memories of the hands that shaped it. A slightly uneven curve. A faint fingerprint hidden beneath dried clay. A gentle ripple left behind by moving water. These small imperfections are not mistakes. They are reminders that patient people created these objects one slow moment after another. But before any pot can exist, there must first be clay. And clay is waiting beside the Nile. Not every patch of mud is suitable. Years of experience have taught Mina exactly where to search. He walks toward the river while the village continues waking behind him. Other craftsmen travel similar paths. Carpenters carry wood. Fishermen carry nets. Farmers carry hoes across their shoulders. Everyone knows one another. A quiet greeting is enough. No long conversations are needed this early. The Nile welcomes them all. Morning mist still hangs above the water. The river seems almost asleep. Gentle ripples spread whenever a fish breaks the surface. White birds stand perfectly still near the shore, waiting with endless patience. Mina kneels beside a familiar place where soft layers of fine clay have collected after many floods. He presses his fingers into the earth. Too much sand. He moves farther. Too many tiny stones. Again he walks. Finally his hand sinks into smooth, rich clay. Cool. Soft. Dense. Almost silky beneath his fingertips. He smiles, though only slightly. Good clay promises a good day. Carefully he begins digging. Not quickly. Large chunks are lifted into woven baskets. Roots are removed. Pebbles are picked away. Each basket grows heavier until carrying it becomes slow work. Several journeys are needed. No complaint escapes his lips. This has always been part of the craft. The river gives generously. But it asks people to work with patience in return. By the time the sun rises above the horizon, warm golden light spreads across the village. The first true heat of the day begins to arrive. Children now run between houses. Women carry water jars balanced gracefully upon their heads. Dogs search hopefully for dropped scraps. Merchants prepare small displays near the village road. Life slowly gathers speed. Back inside the workshop, the fresh clay is emptied onto the ground. At first glance it hardly resembles something useful. It is simply heavy earth. Wet. Dark. Sticky. Yet within this humble pile rests the possibility of hundreds of useful objects. Mina pours water little by little. Never too much. Never too little. His bare feet begin pressing into the mixture. Forward. Back. Turn. Press again. The slow rhythm repeats over and over. It resembles kneading bread, although far heavier. The clay must become smooth. Tiny air pockets must disappear. Hidden pebbles must be found. The mixture slowly changes beneath his feet. What began as rough earth gradually becomes something almost alive beneath careful hands. Hours pass without hurry. Outside, sunlight climbs higher into the Egyptian sky. Inside the shaded workshop, the quiet work continues, one patient movement after another, as the first prepared clay finally reaches the perfect softness ready for the careful hands that will begin transforming simple river earth into vessels that may outlive the very people who create them. The clay rests for a little while. Mina does not reach for it immediately. Someone unfamiliar with the craft might think the work should continue without pause. The clay is ready, the tools are waiting, and the morning is still young. Yet years of experience have taught him that every material has its own quiet rhythm. Clay that has been worked too quickly often refuses to cooperate. It benefits from a short period of stillness, much like a traveler who pauses beneath the shade of a tree after a long walk. So the workshop grows quiet again. Outside, the village has fully awakened. The gentle murmur of voices drifts through the warm air. A donkey pulls a small wooden cart along the dusty road. Chickens scratch the ground between patches of sunlight. Somewhere nearby, grain is being crushed between heavy stones. The slow scraping sound rises and falls with steady regularity, becoming part of the day's familiar music. Nothing feels hurried. Even the wind seems content to move slowly. The smell of damp earth mixes with the sweet scent of reeds drying beneath the sun. Smoke from cooking fires curls lazily into the bright blue sky before disappearing into the warmth above. Mina reaches for the clay once more. This time, he kneels beside it. His hands are strong, but they move with surprising gentleness. He tears away a piece about the size of a loaf of bread and places it on a smooth wooden board. Turning it over several times, he presses with the heel of his hand, folding it inward again and again. Each movement is almost silent. Soft pressure. A slow turn. Another careful fold. The clay slowly becomes smoother than before. His fingers notice things that his eyes cannot. A tiny pebble no larger than a grain of barley is removed before it can cause trouble later. A small root is pulled free and tossed aside. These tiny details matter. A single overlooked stone might create a crack during firing. A tiny air pocket might weaken an entire storage jar. Good pottery begins long before a vessel ever takes shape. Across the workshop, another potter has begun his own work. He is older than Mina. His beard has turned almost completely white, and deep lines cover his weathered face. His movements are slower now than they were many years ago, but they are no less certain. The younger craftsmen often watch him without saying much. They have learned that experience speaks most clearly through quiet hands rather than loud voices. The old man notices Mina preparing the clay. He nods once. No words are needed. It is simply the silent greeting of one craftsman recognizing another. Nearby, a young apprentice enters the workshop carrying fresh water. His name is Hori. He cannot be more than 12 years old. His hands are still small. His arms are still thin. His clothing is stained with dried clay from many previous days. He watches everything with wide, curious eyes. For now, he is trusted only with simple tasks. Fetching water. Sweeping the floor. Cleaning finished tools. Carrying dried pots into the shade. Some days he grows impatient. He wishes to shape beautiful jars immediately. He dreams of creating tall vessels covered with elegant painted designs. But the older craftsmen gently remind him that every skilled potter once spent many months simply watching. Hands must learn before they can teach clay. Mina smiles kindly toward the boy. Come closer. Hori kneels beside him. Without speaking further, Mina places the prepared lump of clay into the apprentice's hands. It feels cool. Heavier than expected. The surface is soft but firm at the same time. Listen to it, Mina says quietly. The boy looks confused. There is no sound. There is. Hori waits. For several moments neither of them speaks. Only the distant birds and the soft breeze fill the silence. Then Mina gently presses the clay. A faint, almost impossible sound escapes. Not quite a whisper. Not quite a sigh. Simply the quiet movement of moisture shifting beneath gentle pressure. The clay always tells you something, Mina says. If it is too wet, it complains. If it is too dry, it resists. If it is ready, it follows. The apprentice nods slowly. Perhaps he understands. Perhaps he does not. Some lessons require many seasons before they truly settle inside a person's heart. The older potters know this well. No one expects wisdom to arrive in a single morning. One by one, several prepared pieces of clay are placed beneath damp linen cloths. This prevents the sun from drying them too quickly. The Egyptian sun is generous with light. Sometimes it is too generous. By midday, even thick pieces of clay can begin losing moisture if left uncovered. Everything must be watched carefully. The workshop itself has been built to work alongside nature rather than against it. Its roof casts long shadows. Open sides allow breezes to drift through. The floor remains packed earth instead of stone because earth holds coolness longer during the hottest hours. Nothing about the building is grand. Everything about it is practical. Generations of craftsmen have quietly improved its design. No architect wrote plans. No ruler gave instructions. Experience shaped the workshop one season at a time. Outside, two women pass carrying empty baskets. Soon they will visit the market. One pauses briefly near the workshop. Several finished bowls rest upon a shelf near the entrance. She gently lifts one. Turning it slowly in her hands, she examines its smooth rim. She taps it softly with a fingernail. The sound rings clear. A good sound. Not dull. Not cracked. She smiles. Although simple, the bowl feels balanced. Comfortable. Its weight is just right. She sets it back carefully. Finished pottery deserves respect. Months of careful work can disappear with one careless movement. The village understands this. Children are taught early not to run through the pottery workshops. Broken clay cannot easily be repaired. The morning grows warmer. Sunlight now reaches deep inside the shelter. Dust floats gently through bright beams of light, rising and falling so slowly that they almost seem suspended in the air. Mina sits upon a low stool. Now comes one of the most familiar parts of his day. He places a rounded lump of clay upon a flat stone. His simple potter's wheel waits before him. It is not the tall spinning wheel that later generations will know. This wheel is low to the ground. Simple. Heavy. Its surface has become smooth after many years of turning beneath skilled hands. He gives it a gentle push. The stone begins to rotate. Slowly at first. Then with steady rhythm. His hands settle against the spinning clay. Nothing dramatic happens. No sudden transformation. Only quiet pressure. His thumbs press gently into the center. A small hollow appears. The opening grows wider. His fingers guide the walls upward. The clay rises almost reluctantly. Little by little. Breath by breath. Turn after turn. The vessel begins revealing itself. Not because Mina forces it. Because he patiently allows it to become what it wishes to be. The apprentice watches closely. He notices that Mina rarely looks directly at his own hands. Instead, his eyes remain fixed near the top of the growing vessel. His fingers seem to know their work without needing constant guidance. Years of repetition have made every movement almost instinctive. The wheel continues turning. Soft circles. Endless circles. The rhythm becomes almost hypnotic. Push. Lift. Steady. Turn. Water glistens across the clay. Occasionally Mina dips his fingers into a nearby bowl. Too much water would weaken the walls. Too little would create roughness. Again, balance matters. Nearly everything about pottery depends upon balance. Not too fast. Not too slow. Not too wet. Not too dry. Not too thick. Not too thin. As the vessel grows taller, sunlight catches its smooth sides. Tiny reflections shimmer like moving silk. The workshop remains wonderfully quiet. Only the gentle spinning of stone. The soft brushing of wet fingers. The distant calls of birds beyond the open walls. These are the sounds that fill the working hours. The first vessel is completed. Mina studies it carefully. He does not celebrate. He simply nods once. Satisfied. With a thin cord stretched between two wooden handles, he slices beneath the finished pot. The vessel separates cleanly from the wheel. Hori carefully carries it toward a shaded shelf. His hands tremble slightly. One mistake would undo an hour's work. Very slowly, he lowers it onto a smooth wooden board. Everyone in the workshop notices. No one speaks. When he finally removes his hands, the vessel stands perfectly upright. A tiny smile appears across the boy's face. The older craftsmen pretend not to notice. Inside, however, they remember their own first successful task many years ago. Every master was once an apprentice whose hands trembled exactly the same way. Without wasting time, Mina reaches for another piece of prepared clay. The second vessel will not be exactly like the first. No two jars ever truly are. One may become slightly wider. Another slightly taller. One may hold grain. Another fresh water. Another fragrant oil. Another barley ready to become beer. Every vessel begins from the same humble earth. Yet each quietly discovers its own purpose. Outside, the sun continues climbing toward its highest place in the sky. The heat slowly settles over the village like a warm blanket. People move a little more slowly now. Even the animals search for shade. But inside the cool workshop, where damp clay, patient hands, and the slow turning of the wheel have become the heartbeat of another peaceful day, Mina begins shaping the second vessel, unaware that before the afternoon is over, an experienced merchant from a nearby town will quietly arrive with a request that could keep every potter in the workshop busy for many days to come. The second vessel begins in exactly the same way as the first. A rounded piece of cool clay rests in the center of the wheel. Mina gives the heavy stone a careful push. It turns without complaint. Round and round. The motion is so familiar that it almost disappears from notice. Like breathing or walking, it has become part of his body after so many years. His hands seem to remember what to do long before his thoughts catch up. The workshop settles into its gentle rhythm once again. No one counts the passing moments. There is no need. The sun keeps its own measure of time. The shadows slowly shift across the packed earth floor. The songs of birds change as the morning grows older. That is enough. The clay responds differently this time. It feels slightly firmer than the last piece. Only someone who has spent thousands of mornings working with river clay would notice such a small difference. Mina notices immediately. His fingers become just a little gentler. He adds only a few drops of water. Not more. The vessel slowly opens beneath his thumbs. Its walls rise little by little. The shape is wider than the first. This one will likely become a mixing bowl. Many families prefer broad bowls for preparing dough. Others use them for washing vegetables gathered from small gardens. Some are filled with lentils, onions, dried figs, or dates during the harvest season. The same bowl may serve several generations. Children may eat from it before growing into adults. Years later, those same adults may watch their own children gather around it during the evening meal. A simple clay bowl quietly becomes part of countless family memories. Perhaps that is why Mina works so carefully. He knows his pottery will travel into homes he will never visit. People he will never meet will depend upon these vessels every day. There is comfort in that thought. Not pride. Simply quiet satisfaction. Across the workshop, the older craftsman has begun decorating a large storage jar that dried several days earlier. Unlike shaping soft clay, decorating requires a different kind of patience. The jar is no longer wet enough to bend easily. Its surface feels cool and firm. Using a sharpened reed, the old man carefully presses tiny patterns into the clay. One short line. Then another. A row of small triangles. A flowing band that circles the shoulder of the vessel. Nothing elaborate. Beauty in this village rarely shouts. It whispers. The carved designs catch the light in subtle ways. When the jar is finished, most people will notice the pattern without truly thinking about it. Yet the decoration brings quiet pleasure every time someone lifts the vessel or walks past it. Even ordinary objects deserve a little grace. Nearby, Hori sweeps away dried scraps of clay that have fallen to the floor. He works carefully. Nothing useful is wasted. Small pieces that remain clean can be soaked and mixed back into fresh clay. Only dirt and broken fragments are thrown away. Clay is precious. The Nile provides much of it, but gathering, cleaning, and preparing it takes many hours. Every handful represents honest labor. The boy pauses beside one shelf. Several finished water jars stand there, waiting for the final stage of their journey. Their color has changed since yesterday. The damp gray clay has become much lighter as moisture slowly leaves it. Hori gently touches one. It still feels cool. Still drying. It cannot yet face the fire. Patience again. Always patience. Outside, the marketplace grows steadily busier. Voices drift toward the workshop. Some merchants have traveled since before sunrise. One arrives with woven baskets filled with garlic. Another carries bunches of fresh herbs tied together with strips of linen. A fisherman displays his morning catch upon damp reeds. The fish glisten beneath the growing sunlight. Women move from stall to stall, speaking softly while comparing grain, vegetables, cloth, and oil. Children weave between the adults with curious eyes. The smell of fresh bread drifts through the warm air. Someone nearby is roasting onions. The sweet scent mixes with smoke from small cooking fires. Even inside the workshop, everyone notices. Mina smiles faintly. Soon it will be time for the midday meal. But not yet. The clay still asks for his attention. He finishes the second bowl. Its rim is perfectly smooth beneath his fingers. Using a damp piece of linen, he wipes away the last faint marks left by his hands. The surface shines softly in the filtered light beneath the reed roof. Another vessel ready to dry. Another quiet success. He lifts it carefully from the wheel. Each finished piece reminds him of something his father once said. A potter does not create one great masterpiece. He creates thousands of useful moments. At the time, Mina had been only a boy. He wanted to make magnificent ceremonial vessels for wealthy nobles. He dreamed of beautiful painted jars carried into grand houses. His father had simply smiled. Then he pointed toward an ordinary water jar standing beside the doorway. The family had used that same jar every day for nearly 15 years. It had survived floods, long summers, children learning to walk, accidental bumps, countless journeys to the river. It may not look important, his father had whispered. But every drink of cool water this family has enjoyed came because someone shaped that jar. Only after many years did Mina fully understand. Greatness is not always found in rare things. Sometimes greatness quietly lives inside everyday work. The morning slowly approaches noon. The shadows beneath the roof become shorter. Outside, the bright Egyptian sun washes the village with brilliant light. The streets grow quieter for a while. People naturally slow their pace during the hottest hours. Even the dogs search beneath carts for patches of shade. Palm leaves barely move. The air itself seems to rest. Inside the workshop, everyone pauses together. Tools are laid aside. Hands are washed in cool water drawn from a large storage vessel. The water feels wonderfully refreshing after hours spent working with clay. Small wooden stools are gathered beneath the deepest shade. Lunch is simple. Round loaves of bread. Fresh onions. Dates. A small bowl of olives traded from another settlement. Goat cheese wrapped in linen. Nothing more is needed. The craftsmen eat without rushing. Conversation comes slowly. No one feels the need to fill every silence. Sometimes silence is the most comfortable companion of all. Hori listens more than he speaks. The older potters begin remembering seasons long past. One tells of an unusually high Nile flood many years earlier. The water had reached fields that normally remained dry. Good clay became plentiful that year. Another remembers a season when the river rose only a little. Clay had become harder to find. Every workshop carefully guarded what little remained. The stories are told without drama. Simply memories shared among friends. Like the river itself, life brings seasons of abundance and seasons of patience. After eating, everyone rests for a short while. Some lean against wooden posts with eyes half closed. Others quietly sharpen carving tools. One craftsman mends a cracked basket using fresh strips of reed. No one sleeps deeply. The afternoon's work still waits. As Mina drinks the last of his water, movement catches his eye beyond the workshop entrance. A man approaches from the marketplace. His clothing is cleaner than most travelers. His sandals show little wear despite the dusty roads. A folded linen cloth protects his head from the sun. Behind him walks a young donkey carrying empty wicker frames. The animal moves slowly, ears gently flicking away flies. The visitor pauses before entering. He looks around the workshop with practiced eyes. Not hurried. Not curious. He has visited many pottery workshops before. He understands what good craftsmanship looks like. The older craftsmen exchange quiet glances. No one speaks immediately. Visitors during working hours usually arrive for one reason. They need pottery. The stranger offers a respectful greeting. Mina returns it. The man slowly walks along the shelves, examining finished bowls, storage jars, water vessels, cooking pots, and small cups. He taps several pieces gently with one finger. Each clear sound seems to satisfy him. He studies the smoothness of the rims, the balance of the handles, the even thickness of the walls. Finally, after several long moments, he smiles. I have traveled from a larger settlement 2 days north along the Nile, he says calmly. Our grain harvest has been better than expected. He pauses, looking across the rows of finished pottery. We are going to need far more storage jars than we first imagined. The craftsman remains silent, listening carefully. The merchant continues. I have heard people speak well of this workshop. His eyes settle upon Mina. If your hands are willing. I believe there may be enough work here to keep every wheel turning from sunrise until well after the next full moon. For a few quiet moments, no one answers. The workshop remains filled with the gentle stillness that has lived there since the first light of morning. Outside, somewhere beyond the shaded roof, a dove calls from the branch of a date palm. The sound rises into the warm afternoon air before fading once again into silence. The merchant waits patiently. He has learned that good craftsmen rarely answer quickly. People who spend their lives shaping clay also learn to shape their words with care. Mina slowly stands. He brushes a little dried clay from his hands before walking toward the shelves where dozens of finished vessels rest in neat rows. The merchant follows beside him. Together they move slowly through the workshop. One shelf holds cooking pots. Another is filled with wide bowls. Farther along stand slender water jars with narrow necks designed to keep dust and insects away from the precious water inside. Every vessel has its purpose. None exists simply to be admired. The merchant gently lifts one of the larger jars. It is empty, yet surprisingly heavy. He turns it slowly beneath the light that filters through the reed roof. His fingers follow the smooth curve of its shoulder. The rim is even. The walls feel strong. There are no hidden cracks. He nods quietly. This one would keep grain safely. Mina smiles. That is exactly why it was made. The merchant replaces the jar with great care. He knows that dropping it would not only waste many days of work but also break something that can never be made exactly the same again. Every handmade vessel is unique. Even when two jars appear alike, the careful eye notices tiny differences. One may lean almost imperceptibly to one side. Another may carry the faint mark of a thumb hidden beneath the handle. A third may have tiny ripples left by water moving across soft clay. These little signs are like quiet signatures. No craftsman intends them. Yet they remain. The older potter joins them. His slow footsteps barely disturb the dusty floor. You are preparing for the harvest, he asks. The merchant nods. Our storehouses are nearly empty now. That is good. It means the grain from last season fed many families. He smiles softly. And now we hope the new harvest will fill every corner once again. The old craftsman understands. Every successful harvest creates work for many different hands. Farmers gather grain. Carpenters repair storage buildings. Basket weavers make new containers. Boatmen carry supplies along the Nile. Potters shape jars large enough to protect the harvest through another year. One good season supports an entire community. The merchant quietly explains what he hopes to buy. Large storage jars. Medium-sized grain vessels. Wide mixing bowls. Small cups. Cooking pots. Oil containers. The list is long. Hori listens with wide eyes. He has never heard anyone order so many pieces at once. His thoughts race ahead. How many lumps of clay will be needed? How many trips to the river? How many days of shaping? How many nights tending the firing pits? The workshop suddenly feels larger than before. Not because its walls have changed. Because the work waiting inside those walls has quietly grown. Mina kneels beside one of the largest storage jars. He places his palm against its broad side. This size. The merchant nods. Many like that. The older potter chuckles softly. Then the Nile had better give us plenty of good clay. The merchant laughs gently. I believe she will. For a little while, the three men discuss practical matters. How many vessels? How many weeks? When the grain harvest will begin? How the finished jars will be transported by boat? The conversation remains calm. There is no bargaining filled with loud voices. No arguments. Only quiet planning between people who understand one another's work. Finally, an agreement is reached. The merchant reaches into a leather pouch hanging from his belt. He places several small pieces of copper upon a wooden table. Alongside them, he sets a neatly folded piece of fine linen. To begin, he says. The rest when the work is finished. Mina accepts the payment with both hands. Not because of its value, but because respect deserves respect in return. The merchant prepares to leave. Before stepping outside, he pauses beside Hori. You are learning the craft. Yes. Then watch carefully. He smiles kindly. The jars these men make may one day outlive every one of us. With that, he disappears into the bright afternoon sunlight. For several moments no one moves. The workshop feels strangely quiet after his departure. At last, the older potter speaks. We will need more clay. Everyone nods. More clay. Much more. The work begins again immediately. There is no celebration. No excitement. Simply another task waiting to be done. Several empty baskets are gathered. Strong ropes are checked. Wooden carrying poles are lifted onto waiting shoulders. This time Hori is allowed to join the journey to the river. He walks proudly beside the older craftsman. The path toward the Nile feels different beneath the afternoon sun. The morning coolness has disappeared. Warm air rises from the earth itself. The smell of sun-baked mud fills the countryside. Grasshoppers leap through dry patches beside the road. Tiny lizards dart between stones before disappearing beneath reeds. Everything moves slowly. Even the breeze seems tired beneath the bright sky. As they walk, the older craftsmen point toward different places along the riverbank. That clay is too sandy. This bank dries too quickly. That place floods too deeply. Hori listens carefully. To him, much of the riverbank still looks the same. But little by little, his eyes begin noticing differences. One patch is darker. Another feels smoother. Some places contain tiny shells. Others are filled with roots. Learning pottery begins long before touching the wheel. It begins by learning the river. The Nile is more than water. It is the quiet partner of every potter. Without its yearly floods, there would be no rich clay. Without its moisture, the earth would become hard and unwilling. Without its steady flow, villages like this would never have grown. When they finally reach a familiar bend in the river, everyone sets down their baskets. The water glitters beneath the afternoon sun. Small ripples shimmer like scattered pieces of polished stone. A flock of white birds rises suddenly into the air. Their wings beat softly before they disappear across the wide blue sky. The craftsmen begin digging. The work is slow. A wooden shovel loosens the earth. Hands pull away stones. Roots are removed. Each basket gradually grows heavier. Hori tries lifting one. He manages only a few careful steps before setting it down again with a quiet laugh. The older men smile. No one mocks him. Every strong potter once struggled beneath heavy baskets. Strength arrives little by little. Just like skill. As the afternoon continues, several neat piles of prepared clay begin waiting beside the river. The craftsmen pause beneath the shade of an acacia tree. They drink cool water carried from the workshop. Their conversation drifts toward memories once again. The oldest craftsman looks across the slow-moving river. When I was younger, he says softly, I believed the wheel was the heart of pottery. He smiles. I was wrong. Hori looks at him curiously. The clay? The boy asks. The old man slowly shakes his head. The fire? Again, he shakes his head. The heart of pottery. He lets the sentence rest for a long moment while watching sunlight dance upon the river. Is patience. No one speaks after that. No one needs to. The river itself seems to agree. It has never hurried. For countless generations it has flowed steadily north, bringing life to fields, villages, birds, fishermen, farmers, and humble potters alike. As the shadows begin stretching longer across the riverbank, the craftsmen load the final heavy baskets onto their shoulders and start the slow walk back toward the village, unaware that the coming days would demand not only their strength and skill, but also their careful planning, for the great firing of dozens of newly made vessels would require more wood, more space, and far more patience than any ordinary week in the workshop. The baskets feel heavier on the journey home. Not because the clay has changed, but because the warmth of the afternoon has settled across the land like a quiet blanket. The sun no longer climbs higher. Instead, it slowly begins its gentle path toward the western horizon, where the colors of the sky will soften long before darkness arrives. The craftsmen walk without rushing. Each carries only what his body can comfortably manage. There is no prize for arriving first. The clay will wait. The workshop has stood for many years, and it will still be standing when they return. Hori walks near the back of the group. His shoulders ache slightly beneath the weight of the basket balanced across a wooden carrying pole. He has never carried so much clay before. Every few hundred steps, the men pause together beneath the shade of a tree or beside a cluster of tall reeds. No one apologizes for stopping. Rest is simply another part of the work. The older craftsmen have learned that tired hands become careless hands. Careless hands break good pottery. As they continue, the village slowly comes into view. From a distance, the homes appear almost to grow from the earth itself. Their mud brick walls share nearly the same color as the surrounding ground. Flat roofs catch the warm afternoon light, while narrow streets weave gently between the houses. Thin streams of smoke rise from several kitchens. Even before reaching the first house, the familiar scent of baking bread drifts toward them. Someone is roasting lentils. Elsewhere, onions cook slowly in clay pots over small fires. The comforting smells seem to welcome everyone home. Children notice the returning potters. Several stop their games to watch. One little girl points toward the baskets. So much clay. Her older brother nods knowingly. They'll make jars. Their mother smiles as she gently guides them back toward home. She knows that before long, one of those jars may stand in her own kitchen, filled with flour or fresh water. The work of the potters quietly touches every family in the village. When the craftsmen reach the workshop, the baskets are unloaded one by one. No one empties them carelessly. Each pile of clay is placed where the evening shade will help keep it cool. Some of it will be prepared tomorrow. Some may rest for several days. Good clay is never wasted simply because there is more than enough. Mina wipes his forehead with a strip of linen. Fine dust clings to his arms. His hands are coated with dried clay that has settled into every small line of his skin. Even after washing, faint traces will remain. His wife often jokes that the Nile itself follows him home each evening. Perhaps she is right. The workshop begins to quiet. The busiest hours of shaping have passed. Now comes a different kind of work. Rows of drying vessels must be checked. Each piece is examined carefully. Some have dried a little faster than expected. These are moved farther into the shade. Others still hold more moisture. They remain where the warm breeze can gently reach them. The process seems simple. Yet every small decision matters. Clay dries unevenly if left in harsh sunlight. A single side may shrink faster than the other. Small cracks can appear without warning. Sometimes they are so fine that only experienced eyes notice them. Mina slowly lifts one unfinished bowl. He taps it lightly with a fingertip. The sound is soft. Still too damp. He places it back exactly where it stood. Nearby, the older craftsman examines a large storage jar nearly as tall as a child. He gently runs both hands around its wide body. His fingers pause. There. A tiny crack. So small that Hori cannot see it. The old man sighs quietly. It won't survive the fire. Hori steps closer. I don't see anything. The old craftsman turns the vessel slightly. Look where the light touches. The apprentice squints. At first, nothing. Then, almost like a thin strand of spider silk, he notices the faint line. So small. Yes. Can it be fixed? The old craftsman slowly shakes his head. Some things can. Some cannot. Without anger or disappointment, he carefully sets the vessel aside. No one complains. Every potter knows that not every piece reaches completion. The clay teaches humility. It reminds people that perfection belongs only to nature itself. Even the most skilled hands cannot command every outcome. Hori continues looking at the cracked jar. So many hours. The older man smiles gently. They were not wasted. The boy looks confused. The jar broke. But the hands became wiser. For several moments, Hori thinks quietly. He begins to understand that every mistake leaves behind something valuable, even when the pottery itself cannot be saved. As the afternoon slowly gives way to evening, the workshop grows cooler. Long shadows stretch across the floor. The bright golden light softens into warm amber. Dust floating through the air now glows like tiny specks of honey-colored light. Outside, farmers begin returning from their fields. Their footsteps are slow after a full day beneath the Egyptian sun. Donkeys carry bundles of reeds. Oxen pull simple wooden carts filled with harvested vegetables. Women return from the river balancing water jars gracefully upon their heads. Children run to greet their parents before proudly carrying small baskets or tools the final few steps home. The village settles into its evening rhythm. A flock of ibises glides low above the Nile before disappearing toward the marshes. The river itself reflects the changing sky. Blue becomes gold. Gold slowly becomes orange. Then, almost without anyone noticing, soft shades of rose begin spreading across the quiet water. Mina steps outside the workshop for a few moments. He enjoys watching this hour of the day. Morning belongs to beginnings. Evening belongs to gratitude. He sits upon a smooth stone beside the entrance. The day's work passes gently through his thoughts. The merchant's order. The fresh clay. The bowls shaped before noon. The cracked storage jar. The tired smile on Hori's face after carrying his first heavy basket. None of these moments seems extraordinary. Together, however, they form the quiet fabric of an ordinary life. Sometimes ordinary days become the most precious memories. A cool breeze finally arrives from the river. It carries the scent of wet reeds and fresh water. The heat of the afternoon slowly fades. Nearby, an elderly woman sweeps the front of her home with a bundle of palm fibers. The gentle brushing sound repeats again and again across the packed earth. A little farther away, someone begins playing a simple reed flute. The melody is slow. Only a few notes. Soft enough that the breeze nearly carries them away. No one gathers to listen. The music is simply part of the evening, like birds returning to their nests. Inside the workshop, Hori finishes cleaning the tools. Each wooden paddle is washed. Each carving reed is placed neatly inside a woven basket. The potter's wheel is wiped free of drying clay. Tomorrow morning it will be ready once again. He pauses beside the wheel. Earlier in the day, it had seemed almost magical. Now he notices something different. It is not the wheel that creates beautiful pottery. It is the patient hands guiding it. The wheel simply helps. The craft lives inside the people. Before leaving, Mina walks once more between the rows of drying vessels. There are dozens now. Some small enough to fit in one hand. Others so large they require two people to move them safely. Tomorrow, there will be more. And the day after that, even more still. The merchant's order has quietly changed the pace of the workshop. Not into something hurried. Only into something fuller. The coming weeks will require careful planning. There must always be enough prepared clay. Enough drying space. Enough firewood. Enough time for each vessel to rest before meeting the flames. The fire does not forgive impatience. As the last light of the sun slips beyond the western horizon, the first stars begin appearing above the village. One by one. Quietly. Just as they have done for countless generations. The workshop door is gently closed for the night. Inside, rows of unfinished pots wait peacefully in the darkness, slowly releasing the last of their moisture into the cool evening air, while beyond the village, deep within the silent groves along the Nile, men who gathered wood each day for many different trades are preparing bundles of dry acacia and tamarisk, unaware that before many mornings have passed, nearly all of it would be needed for one of the largest pottery firings this humble workshop had ever attempted. Night settles gently over the village. The last warm colors of sunset slowly disappear, leaving behind a deep blue sky scattered with countless quiet stars. The Nile reflects those distant lights in broken lines that shimmer softly whenever the evening breeze touches the water. The village grows peaceful. Cooking fires become smaller. The cheerful voices of children fade one by one as families gather inside their homes. Dogs curl beside doorways. Goats rest together inside simple wooden pens. Even the birds hidden among the palms have stopped singing. Only the steady chorus of crickets remains. Their tiny voices rise together until they almost become part of the silence itself. Inside his home, Mina washes the clay from his hands. A large earthen bowl filled with cool water stands near the doorway. He lowers his hands into it slowly. Thin clouds of brown drip through the water as the clay loosens from his skin. The lines on his palms slowly appear again. The rough places on his fingers tell the story of many years spent working. His hands are not beautiful in the way that polished jewelry is beautiful. They are beautiful because they have been useful. They have shaped thousands of vessels. They have carried heavy baskets. They have repaired broken tools. They have patiently repeated the same careful movements through season after season. His wife smiles as he enters. Their evening meal is already prepared. Fresh bread rests beneath a linen cloth. A small clay bowl holds lentil stew seasoned with onions and herbs. There are a few olives. Some dates for sweetness. A small piece of soft cheese. Simple food. Comforting food. The bowls and plates they use each evening were made by local potters many years ago. Some were shaped by Mina himself. Others came from the hands of his father before him. There is quiet satisfaction in eating from something your own family created. Nothing feels wasted. Nothing feels distant. Everything belongs together. They eat slowly. Their young daughter sits nearby, carefully dipping pieces of bread into the warm stew. She is still too young to understand the full importance of her father's work. To her, clay jars have always existed. Water has always been cool. Bread has always rested safely inside large storage vessels. She has never imagined a home without pottery. Few people do. The most useful things often become almost invisible because they are always there. After supper, Mina steps outside once more. The air has become pleasantly cool. Several neighbors sit together outside their homes, enjoying the evening breeze. No one speaks loudly. There is no need. The quiet itself is comforting. An elderly man slowly tells a story from his youth. Children listen with sleepy eyes. A woman gently mends a fishing net while her husband smooths the handle of a wooden hoe that will return to the fields tomorrow morning. Every pair of hands seems content to remain busy with some small task. Across the village, Hori sits beside his grandfather. The old man is not a potter. He spent most of his life growing barley and emmer wheat. His shoulders remain broad despite his age. His skin has darkened beneath decades of Egyptian sunlight. Hori eagerly tells him about the merchant. So many jars, he says. His hands spread wide as though trying to show their size. Enough to fill nearly every shelf. His grandfather smiles. Then your workshop will be busy. It already is. And are you afraid? Hori thinks carefully before answering. A little. His grandfather nods. That is good. The boy looks surprised. I thought courage meant never being afraid. The old farmer chuckles softly. No. Courage means continuing your work even while your heart is uncertain. Hori remembers carrying the heavy basket of clay earlier that day. His shoulders had hurt. His legs had grown tired. Yet he had continued walking. Perhaps that is what his grandfather means. The stars slowly drift across the sky. One by one, families return indoors. Oil lamps burn with small steady flames behind narrow windows. The village becomes quieter still. Far away, an owl calls from somewhere among the reeds. The Nile continues flowing exactly as it did before sunrise. Exactly as it will tomorrow. Exactly as it has for countless generations. Eventually Mina lies down upon a woven sleeping mat. His body feels pleasantly tired. Not exhausted. Simply satisfied. The kind of tiredness that comes after honest work completed with care. His eyes slowly close. Tomorrow will bring more clay. More shaping. More waiting. More patience. There is comfort in knowing what tomorrow will ask of him. Before dawn arrives, however, someone else is already awake. Not inside the village. Far beyond the houses. Near a quiet grove of acacia trees growing along the edge of the desert. Several woodcutters begin their day long before the first light reaches the eastern sky. Their work is closely connected to the work of the potters, although they rarely spend much time together. Without firewood, clay remains only dried earth. The strongest vessel in the world cannot exist until it has passed through fire. The leader of the woodcutters slowly examines the trees. He does not simply cut the largest ones. He chooses carefully. Branches that have already dried. Trees damaged by storms. Wood that burns hot and steadily. Green wood creates too much smoke. Wet wood burns unevenly. The firing of pottery demands the same patience as shaping it. Every craft depends upon understanding nature rather than trying to command it. The men work quietly. Bronze axes strike wood with slow, steady rhythm. Each sound echoes softly through the still morning air. Birds flutter from nearby branches before settling again. The scent of fresh cut acacia fills the grove. It is warm. Sweet. Almost spicy. The woodcutters stack each branch neatly. Long pieces together. Short pieces in separate piles. Nothing useful is ignored. Even the smaller branches will help begin the fires. By the time the eastern horizon begins glowing pale silver, several large bundles have already been tied with strong rope. Nearby, bundles of tamarisk wood are prepared as well. Tamarisk burns differently from acacia. Experienced fire tenders know exactly when each type should be added. The firing of pottery is almost like preparing a careful meal. Every ingredient has its moment. Every flame has its purpose. As dawn slowly approaches, the village begins waking once again. The familiar sounds return. A rooster announces the morning. Goats begin moving inside their pens. The first cooking fires send thin streams of smoke into the brightening sky. Mina wakes before the sunlight reaches his doorway. For a moment, he simply listens. The village has not yet become busy. He enjoys these peaceful moments each morning. They remind him that every day begins in silence before slowly filling with work. After washing his face with cool water, he steps outside. The air feels fresh. The earth still holds the night's coolness. Tiny drops of dew cling to reeds beside the narrow paths. Across the eastern sky, soft pink light slowly spreads above the Nile. The river glows like polished bronze beneath the first rays of sunrise. It is beautiful in a quiet way. Beautiful enough that even after seeing it every morning for many years, Mina still pauses to admire it. Soon Hori arrives at the workshop. He is earlier than usual. The excitement of the merchant's order has reached even his dreams. He hopes to learn something new today. Perhaps he will finally be allowed to shape a small bowl on the wheel. Perhaps he will help prepare one of the great storage jars. He tries not to think too far ahead. Still, hope walks beside him. One by one, the other craftsmen arrive. The workshop slowly comes alive. The clay gathered yesterday waits beneath damp cloths. The tools rest exactly where Hori placed them before sunset. The potter's wheel stands quietly in the center of the workshop, ready for another long day of slow turning. Mina uncovers the first mound of prepared clay. He presses it gently with one finger. Perfect. Cool. Smooth. Ready. He smiles. It is a good morning. The older craftsman nods. Then let us begin before the sun remembers how hot it can become. Everyone laughs softly. Only for a moment. Then silence returns. The first wheel begins turning. Another follows. Soon the quiet heartbeat of the workshop fills the morning once again. Round and round. Steady and patient. Just as it always has. Just as it always will. And as the first fresh vessel of the new day slowly rises beneath Mina's steady hands, another thought quietly takes shape in his mind. The merchant had asked for many large grain jars, but before they could even think about firing them, someone would have to teach Hori the delicate art of building vessels too large to be formed from a single piece of clay, a lesson that would require not only skill, but an entire day devoted to one magnificent jar whose walls would rise little by little, one careful coil at a time. The morning begins as so many mornings have before it. The potter's wheels turn with slow, steady rhythm. Water glistens on smooth clay. Hands rise and fall in quiet patterns learned through many years of patient work. Outside, the first sunlight spreads gently across the village. It reaches the tops of the palm trees before touching the mud brick homes below. Shadows stretch across the narrow paths, long and soft, slowly shrinking as the sun climbs higher. Inside the workshop, every craftsman settles into familiar movements. No one speaks very much. There is comfort in shared silence. The quiet sounds of the workshop are enough. The soft scrape of clay against wood. The gentle splash of fingers dipping into water. The slow turning of heavy wheels. The distant call of birds near the Nile. Together they create a peaceful melody that changes very little from one day to the next. Hori begins by preparing fresh clay. He removes the damp linen covering from one large mound gathered the previous afternoon. The clay feels wonderfully cool beneath his fingertips. Its surface is smooth, almost silky, carrying the faint scent of wet earth left behind by the Nile's generous floods. He smiles without realizing it. Only a few months ago, clay had simply been mud to him. Now he notices its texture, its weight, its moisture, its quiet personality. The river is slowly teaching him to see. Mina watches for a moment. He remembers feeling exactly the same many years earlier. His own teacher had once said, when you begin noticing differences in the clay before anyone tells you they are there, you have taken your first true step toward becoming a potter. At the time, Mina had not understood those words. Now he did. The clay itself had become his teacher. Today, however, the work will be a little different. The merchant's order includes many large storage jars. These cannot simply be pulled upward on the wheel the way smaller bowls and cups can. A vessel large enough to hold an entire family's grain for many months requires another method. It grows slowly, layer by layer, almost the way a bird builds its nest. Mina calls Hori closer. The boy quickly washes his hands before kneeling beside him. The older craftsmen quietly continue their own work while listening from nearby. Even after many years, they still enjoy watching someone learn. Mina places a large lump of prepared clay upon a flat wooden board. "This jar will not be finished today," he says softly. Hori looks surprised. "So long." Mina nods. "If we hurry." He gently presses the clay. "The jar will fall." He points toward the empty board. "We will build only the beginning today." The apprentice watches every movement. Mina rolls a thick piece of clay between his palms and the board. Slowly it becomes a long rope of clay. Not thin. Not thick. Even from one end to the other. He places it carefully into a broad circle. Its ends meet perfectly. Then he gently presses them together until no seam remains. This is the foundation. The circle looks almost too simple. Hori expected something more complicated. But every great vessel begins with a simple first step. Mina smooths the circle with damp fingers. Another coil is rolled. This one rests directly above the first. Again the seam disappears beneath gentle pressure. Another follows. And another. The walls rise only a little. Barely the height of a man's hand. Then Mina stops. He picks up a smooth stone no larger than an egg. Holding the stone inside the vessel, he gently taps the outer wall with a small wooden paddle. Tap. 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 Each quiet sound echoes through the workshop. The walls slowly become firmer. Smoother. Stronger. The shape begins to settle. Hori listens carefully. Even the sound changes. At first the tapping is dull. As the clay becomes more compact, the tone grows slightly clearer. The older potter smiles. The clay is answering him. Hori looks toward the sound with growing fascination. He had never realized that shaping pottery required listening as much as looking. Mina pauses. He places the paddle into Hori's hands. "Your turn." The boy swallows nervously. "What if I strike too hard?" "Then you will learn." "What if I strike too softly?" "You will also learn." The apprentice smiles shyly. There seems to be a lesson waiting inside every possible mistake. Very carefully, he begins. Tap. 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 His first movements are uncertain. The rhythm is uneven. Sometimes he hesitates before each gentle strike. Mina quietly adjusts the position of his hands. A little lower. The tapping continues. Relax your shoulders. Again. Listen. Hori closes his eyes for just a moment. Tap. 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 The sound changes almost imperceptibly. There, Mina whispers. You heard it? The boy opens his eyes with quiet excitement. He had. Only faintly. But he had noticed the difference. The older craftsmen exchanged satisfied glances. Another small step has been taken. The large jar continues growing. Coil after coil. Layer after layer. Every new ring of clay is carefully joined to the one beneath it. No gaps. No trapped air. No hurried movements. Each section is smoothed inside and outside until it appears to have grown naturally from a single piece. Hours pass quietly. The walls gradually rise toward Hori's chest. Still the vessel is far from complete. Mina finally stops. This is enough. The apprentice looks puzzled. But we can keep going. We could. Then why stop? Mina gently places both hands against the broad wall of the unfinished jar. The lower clay must become stronger before it carries more weight. Hori slowly nods. The lesson is becoming familiar. Everything depends upon patience. If they continue building immediately, the heavy upper walls may slowly press downward. the beautiful shape would bend. Perhaps even collapse. So the unfinished vessel rests. It will wait beneath damp linen until tomorrow. Only then will it be ready to grow taller. The workshop returns to its ordinary rhythm. Smaller bowls are shaped upon the wheels. Cooking pots appear one after another. Water jars line the shelves. Outside, the village continues its peaceful routine. A farmer leads 2 oxen toward the fields. Their slow footsteps raise tiny clouds of dust that drift lazily through the morning light. Women gather beside the Nile to wash linen cloth in the clear shallows. Children chase one another between date palms, their laughter carried softly on the breeze before fading into the distance. A fisherman carefully repairs a torn net beneath the shade of a sycamore tree. Nearby, an elderly basket weaver patiently bends fresh reeds into graceful circles. Every craft follows its own rhythm. Every pair of hands serves the village in its own quiet way. Near midday, a traveler arrives carrying several worn pottery vessels wrapped carefully inside woven straw. He is not here to buy new ones. He has come hoping something old can be saved. One cooking pot has lost its handle. Another water jar bears a small chip near its rim. A storage vessel has developed a tiny crack after many seasons of faithful use. Mina examines each piece slowly. He turns them beneath the light. Runs his fingers across their surfaces. Some damage can be repaired. Some cannot. The cracked storage jar is set aside with gentle care. It has lived a long life, Mina says kindly. It served well. The traveler nods. There is no sadness. Only quiet acceptance. Even pottery, strong as it may seem, eventually returns to the earth from which it came. Nothing lasts forever. Not wood. Not linen. Not stone untouched by wind. Not even the greatest monuments escape time forever. Yet while they exist, they quietly make life easier for those around them. The traveler leaves with 2 repaired vessels and 1 new cooking pot wrapped securely in fresh reeds. As he walks back toward the river path, the sunlight catches the smooth surface of the new vessel. It gleams softly for a moment before disappearing among the palms. Inside the workshop, Mina turns once more toward the great unfinished grain jar resting beneath its damp cloth. He gently lifts one corner just enough to look inside. The clay is settling beautifully. Tomorrow it will be ready to rise higher. Tomorrow the jar will take another slow step toward becoming one of the largest vessels the workshop has made in many seasons. And neither Mina nor Hori yet realizes that when the jar is finally complete, the challenge will no longer be shaping it, but finding a safe way to carry such an enormous vessel across the village without allowing even the smallest crack to appear before it reaches the waiting fire. The unfinished grain jar rests quietly beneath its damp linen covering. It asks for nothing. It simply waits. The morning continues around it, yet the great vessel remains exactly where it is, allowing the lower walls to grow stronger little by little. Mina knows that this waiting is every bit as important as the shaping itself. Clay has its own quiet language. It speaks through time. It speaks through moisture. It speaks through patience. Anyone who refuses to listen will soon discover that clay always has the final word. The workshop grows steadily busier as the morning unfolds. Fresh lumps of prepared clay are carried from the shaded corner one after another. Hori moves carefully, balancing each piece in both hands as though carrying something much more precious than ordinary earth. In a way, he is. Within each lump rests the possibility of a useful object that may remain in someone's home for many years. He places another piece beside Mina's wheel. The older potter smiles. Thank you. Hori nods quietly before returning for another. He enjoys these simple tasks now. Months earlier, he had wished only to shape beautiful vessels. Now he understands that every finished pot begins with many humble jobs that few people notice. Preparing clay. Keeping water clean. Covering drying pieces. Sweeping the floor. Sharpening wooden tools. Watching carefully. Learning patiently. None of these jobs brings admiration. Yet without them, nothing else could happen. The sun rises a little higher. Golden light slips through the spaces between the reeds that form the workshop roof. Thin beams fall across shelves filled with drying bowls. Dust drifts lazily through the bright light, moving so slowly that it seems almost suspended in the warm air. Outside, a soft breeze arrives from the Nile. It carries the cool scent of fresh water and wet reeds. The breeze slips through the open sides of the workshop, gently touching the rows of drying pottery before continuing into the village beyond. Everyone notices it. No one comments. The cool air is welcome enough by itself. Mina begins shaping another storage jar. This one is smaller than the great grain vessel. It can be formed almost entirely upon the wheel. His hands center the clay with calm confidence. The heavy stone beneath the wheel turns steadily. Round after round. The rhythm never changes. Watching the wheel has become one of Hori's favorite parts of the day. Sometimes he feels as though the spinning stone slows the world around it. Everything becomes quieter. The steady turning seems almost like the slow flow of the Nile itself. Never hurried. Never stopping. Always moving. Nearby, the oldest craftsman prepares a mixture of fine red earth and water inside a shallow clay bowl. Hori walks closer. What is that? A slip. The old man stirs the mixture gently using a smooth wooden stick. It will make the surface softer. He dips 2 fingers into the reddish liquid. Then he carefully brushes it across the outside of a nearly dry water jar. Immediately the color deepens. The vessel begins to glow with a warm reddish tone beneath the morning light. Hori watches in silence. The jar already looked beautiful. Now it seems almost alive. The old craftsman smiles. When people carry water every day. He smooths another thin layer. It is pleasant if the vessel is beautiful too. The apprentice nods. Beauty, he is beginning to understand, does not belong only in temples or noble houses. Beauty belongs in ordinary kitchens. Beside cooking fires. Near village wells. On simple wooden shelves. Even a humble water jar deserves careful hands. The red slip dries quickly in the warm air. Afterward, the old craftsman picks up a smooth rounded stone no larger than his thumb. He rubs it gently across the vessel's surface. Back and forth. Small circles. Again and again. The motion is slow. Almost meditative. As the stone moves across the clay, something remarkable happens. The surface begins reflecting light. Not brightly. Not like polished metal. Instead, it develops a soft glow similar to smooth river pebbles after rain. Hori reaches out carefully. May I touch it? Of course. The jar feels unexpectedly smooth. Cool. Almost silky. He smiles. It feels different. It remembers every careful movement. The old craftsman continues polishing. This shine will remain even after the firing. For nearly an hour, he works without haste. Each small section receives equal attention. The vessel slowly transforms from ordinary clay into something quietly elegant. Meanwhile, outside the workshop, life continues its familiar course. A pair of fishermen carry woven traps toward the river. Their bare feet leave faint footprints in the soft earth before the breeze slowly erases them. Across the path, two young girls gather fallen palm leaves for weaving. They laugh softly as they compare the longest leaves. An elderly woman sits outside her doorway spinning flax into fine thread. Her fingers move almost without thought. Twist. Pull. Wrap. The same simple motions repeated thousands upon thousands of times over the years. Every craft in the village shares something with pottery. None can be mastered quickly. Patience shapes them all. Near midday, clouds drift gently across the sun. Only a few. Thin and white. For a little while, the bright light becomes softer. The workshop cools pleasantly. Several craftsmen quietly pause to drink water from a large earthen jar standing in the shade. The outside of the vessel feels damp. Tiny drops of moisture cling to its surface. As the water slowly seeps through the porous clay and evaporates into the warm air, the jar keeps the water inside wonderfully cool. Hori drinks slowly. The water tastes fresh. He smiles. This jar keeps water colder than the river. Mina nods. That is one of pottery's quiet gifts. No magic. No mystery. Simply careful craftsmanship working together with nature. The apprentice gently places the cup back beside the jar. For a moment, he studies it. Someone shaped this vessel years ago. Perhaps that potter has grown old. Perhaps he is no longer alive. Yet his work continues serving thirsty people every single day. The thought stays with Hori. Maybe that is what every craftsman secretly hopes for. Not fame. Not wealth. Only that something made with patient hands might continue helping others long after the work itself is finished. The afternoon begins. The shadows shorten beneath the workshop roof. The great grain jar is uncovered for only a brief moment. Mina gently presses one finger against the lower wall. Firm. Exactly as he hoped. Not yet ready for another layer. But very close. He covers it again. Tomorrow, he whispers. The vessel seems almost to be growing in its sleep. Across the workshop, shelves continue filling with newly shaped bowls, jars, cooking pots, oil flasks, and drinking cups. The merchant's order is slowly becoming real. Not through hurried labor. Through one careful vessel after another. Piece by piece. Day by day. The older craftsmen exchange satisfied glances. No one counts how many pots have been completed. They simply continue working. The numbers will take care of themselves. As the afternoon breeze returns from the Nile, carrying with it the distant scent of flowering reeds and damp earth, Mina notices several swallows circling low above the village. They fly with unusual purpose, gathering bits of straw and soft mud for their nests beneath the eaves of nearby homes. He watches them for a long moment before quietly smiling to himself. They build as we do, he says. Hori looks up at the birds. One piece at a time. Mina nods. One piece at a time. Neither of them knows that within a few more days, when the great grain jar finally reaches its full height, every craftsman in the workshop will gather around it in much the same way those small birds gather around a growing nest, each pair of hands adding one careful touch, knowing that the strength of the whole depends upon the patience shown in every single piece that came before. The swallows disappear into the bright afternoon sky. For a little while, Hori continues watching the place where they vanished. Their tiny wings carried bits of straw and damp earth, each bird adding only a very small piece to its nest. No single journey seemed important by itself. Yet together, hundreds of small journeys created a safe home. He quietly smiles. The lesson feels familiar. Every bowl, every jar, every careful movement of the hands. None seems remarkable alone. But over many seasons, they become a lifetime's work. He turns back toward the workshop. The steady rhythm of pottery has never stopped. The wheels continue turning. The shelves continue filling. The air continues carrying the comforting scent of damp clay mixed with warm wood and river water. Sunlight moves slowly across the floor, touching first one row of vessels, then another. The afternoon passes without hurry. A small cat wanders into the workshop. Everyone knows her. She has visited nearly every day for several years. No one remembers exactly when she first appeared. Perhaps she followed the smell of food. Perhaps she simply discovered that the workshop remained pleasantly cool during the hottest hours of summer. She stretches lazily beneath one of the shelves. Her green eyes slowly examine the room before closing halfway. The potters pay her little attention. She belongs here now. The cat knows exactly where she may walk safely. She carefully steps around drying vessels as though she understands their importance. Hori laughs quietly. I think she knows pottery. The oldest craftsman smiles. She knows where not to put her feet. The cat circles once before curling into a comfortable ball upon a folded reed mat. Within moments she is asleep. The workshop continues around her. No loud noises disturb her rest. Only the soft turning of wheels. The quiet brushing of fingers across wet clay. The occasional splash of water. Even the cat seems to understand that this is a place built for calm. Mina begins preparing another group of medium-sized storage jars. These will hold dried beans, lentils, onions, and grain inside village homes. Unlike the enormous harvest vessels, these jars can easily be carried by one person. Families often place several together along the coolest wall of the house. There they quietly guard the food that will nourish everyone through the changing seasons. As he works, Hori notices something interesting. Although every storage jar follows nearly the same shape, Mina never measures them using a ruler. There are no marked lines upon the wheel. No strings showing exact height. Only his eyes. His hands. His experience. The apprentice finally asks. How do you always know? Mina looks up from the wheel. Know what? When it is the right size. The older potter pauses for a moment. He gently rests both hands upon the spinning clay. I stopped thinking about size many years ago. Hori looks puzzled. What do you think about? The purpose. The wheel continues turning. If the jar will carry water. His fingers narrow the neck. It asks for one shape. The clay slowly rises. If it will protect grain. The body grows wider. It asks for another. The vessel gradually takes form. If it must travel often. He gently thickens the lower wall. It asks to become stronger. Hori watches carefully. So the jar tells you. Mina smiles. In a way. The apprentice thinks about that answer for a long time. Perhaps every useful object quietly suggests its own shape. The potter simply listens. Outside, the afternoon slowly begins leaning toward evening. The heat softens. A pleasant breeze moves through the palms, causing thousands of long leaves to whisper together. Their sound drifts across the village like gentle rain. Women gather fresh herbs from small gardens beside their homes. Children carry tiny bundles of firewood. A shepherd slowly leads goats back toward their pens. Dust rises beneath their hooves before settling once again. Nothing feels rushed. Life moves at the comfortable pace of people who understand that tomorrow will arrive soon enough. Inside the workshop, the great grain jar waits beneath its linen covering. Mina uncovers it for only a brief moment. The walls have grown stronger. He gently presses them with open palms. No movement. Excellent. He smiles quietly. Tomorrow morning. Hori grins. We make it taller. We help it become taller. The difference is small, yet important. No potter truly believes he forces clay into shape. He works with it, not against it. As the afternoon light grows softer, another visitor appears. This time it is not a merchant. It is an elderly farmer named Beck. His beard has turned almost white. His sandals are dusty from many seasons spent walking between fields and river. He carries something wrapped carefully inside a piece of old linen. The craftsmen greet him warmly. Beck has visited this workshop many times over the years. Slowly, he unwraps the bundle. Inside rests a small clay cup. Its surface has become smooth from decades of use. The reddish color has faded slightly. One side carries the faint mark of many fingers. Near the rim, a tiny chip has appeared. The cup looks old. Very old. Beck smiles gently. My father drank from this. He turns it carefully. Then I did. The workshop grows wonderfully quiet. He continues. My grandson wishes to use it too. He looks toward Mina. Can you smooth this edge before it cuts his hand? Mina accepts the cup with great care. He studies it for several moments. Then his eyes become thoughtful. This was made here. Beck nods. Your father shaped it? Mina slowly runs one finger across the cup's worn surface. He remembers watching his father work when he himself had been younger than Hori. Perhaps this very cup had stood drying upon these same shelves. Perhaps his father had polished it with the very same smooth stone resting nearby. The years suddenly feel very close. Without speaking, Mina carefully begins smoothing the chipped edge using a small polishing stone. The work is delicate. Only the rough place must disappear. The cup itself must remain unchanged. Several minutes pass. Finally he wets the rim with a little clean water. His thumb slowly circles the edge one last time. Perfect. He returns the cup. Beck lifts it into the light. His smile grows wider. It feels just as it did before. Mina nods. May it serve another generation. The old farmer bows his head gratefully. I believe it will. As Beck slowly walks home, holding the ancient cup close against his chest, Hori quietly watches him disappear along the dusty path. It has lived longer than I have. Mina smiles. Much longer. Will the jars we make today last that long? The older potter looks across the workshop. Rows of fresh vessels stand waiting for their turn in the fire. Some will break. Some will chip. Some will remain useful for decades. A few. Perhaps much longer. If they are treated kindly. He gently wipes clay from his hands. They may one day belong to children who have not even been born yet. Hori looks toward the shelves with new eyes. Suddenly, they no longer hold only pottery. They hold future memories. Future family meals. Future harvests. Future evenings beside quiet cooking fires. As the sunlight slowly turns golden once more and long shadows begin reaching across the workshop floor, Mina places a fresh damp cloth over the great grain jar for its final night of waiting. By sunrise, the clay would be ready for the most important stage of its creation, when the vessel would rise above Hori's shoulders for the first time, requiring every steady hand in the workshop to work together in perfect patience, just as generations of Egyptian potters had done beside the Nile for centuries before them. The village sleeps peacefully beneath a sky filled with quiet stars. The day's warmth has faded from the earth, leaving behind cool air that drifts gently from the Nile. The river continues its endless journey through the darkness, reflecting the moon in long silver ribbons that ripple softly whenever a fish rises near the surface. Inside the workshop, every vessel rests exactly where it was left. Rows of bowls, lines of water jars, cooking pots standing shoulder to shoulder, small cups waiting patiently beside larger storage vessels. And beneath its carefully folded linen cloth, the great grain jar waits for another morning. It does not hurry. Clay never hurries. The workshop itself seems almost alive in the stillness. The scent of damp earth lingers beneath the reed roof. Wooden tools lie quietly upon the workbench. The potter's wheels remain perfectly still for the first time all day. Only the occasional whisper of wind slipping through the reeds disturbs the silence. Outside, an owl glides silently across the village. Its wings make no sound. It circles once above the workshop before disappearing toward the marshes. The stars slowly travel across the heavens, hour by hour, without anyone noticing, without anyone needing to notice. Before the first bird begins to sing, Mina awakens. For a few moments he remains lying quietly upon his woven mat, listening to the peaceful sounds of early morning. The distant river, the soft breathing of his family, the gentle rustling of palm leaves outside. These quiet moments belong only to dawn. Soon the village will wake. Voices will return. Footsteps will fill the narrow paths. But for now, Egypt belongs to silence. He rises carefully so as not to wake anyone. Outside, the eastern horizon carries only the faintest hint of pale gray. The stars still shine overhead. The cool air feels refreshing after yesterday's heat. Mina washes his hands and face with water from a large clay jar standing beside the doorway. The water is wonderfully cool. He smiles softly. Someone shaped this vessel many years ago. Even before the sun has risen, another potter's careful work is already making this morning more comfortable. Simple things often bring the greatest comfort. He walks slowly toward the workshop. The village remains half asleep. A baker has already begun preparing the day's bread. The warm smell of grain slowly baking drifts through the quiet streets. Somewhere nearby, a woman grinds flour using a heavy stone. The steady rhythm echoes gently through the cool morning air. A fisherman carrying rolled nets offers Mina a silent nod. No words are needed. Both men understand the value of beginning early. The workshop stands waiting. Its doorway faces the eastern sky, where the first soft light now begins spreading across the land. The reed roof glows gently beneath the approaching sunrise. Everything inside appears exactly as it did the evening before. Nothing has shifted. Nothing has fallen. The clay has quietly spent the entire night becoming stronger. One by one, the other craftsmen arrive. Each greets the morning with the same calm routine. Water jars are uncovered. Tools are laid neatly upon the benches. Fresh cloths are dampened. The workshop slowly awakens. Hori arrives almost running before remembering to slow himself. His excitement is difficult to hide. Today the great grain jar will grow again. The oldest craftsman notices the boy's eager face. He smiles. The clay has waited all night. He gently places a hand upon Hori's shoulder. It will wait another few breaths. The apprentice laughs softly, embarrassed. He forces himself to breathe more slowly. Patience. Again. Always patience. At last Mina walks toward the large covered vessel. Everyone nearby pauses without being asked. Even those busy shaping smaller bowls quietly look up. The workshop grows wonderfully still. Mina carefully folds back the damp linen. The great jar stands proudly upon its wooden board. Its broad lower body has settled perfectly. The walls remain firm. Not a single crack appears beneath the morning light. He gently presses both hands against the sides. Strong. Balanced. Ready. A satisfied smile crosses his face. It is time. Hori kneels beside him immediately. The older craftsmen quietly gather around. No one speaks loudly. This moment deserves calm attention. Mina begins preparing fresh coils of clay. Each one must match the thickness of those placed the day before. Not thicker. Not thinner. Even the smallest difference could affect the balance of such a large vessel. The first long coil is lifted carefully. Together, Mina and Hori carry it toward the waiting jar. The apprentice supports one end while Mina guides the other. Slowly they lower it onto the rim. The soft clay settles gently into place. Mina presses downward with both thumbs. His fingers smooth the joint inside and outside until it disappears completely. Another coil follows. Then another. The vessel begins rising once again. Not quickly. Only the width of a hand at a time. After every new layer, the walls are gently compressed using the familiar wooden paddle and smooth polishing stone. Tap. 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 The sound echoes softly through the workshop. The rhythm is calm and steady. Almost like a slow heartbeat. Hori notices that the sound has changed since yesterday. The jar answers with a deeper tone now. Its walls have become stronger. Its body more complete. The older craftsman catches the boy listening. You hear it? Hori nods. I do. The old man smiles. The clay is becoming confident. The words seem unusual. Yet somehow they feel true. As the walls grow higher, Mina must stand rather than kneel. Soon even standing is not enough. A low wooden platform is brought beside the vessel. He climbs carefully onto it. Now his hands comfortably reach the rim. Hori hands each prepared coil upward one at a time. The teamwork is quiet and effortless. No unnecessary movements. No wasted words. Each person knows exactly when to help. Exactly when to wait. Outside, the village continues another ordinary morning. Children carry fresh water from the river. Farmers walk toward green fields stretching beside the Nile. A shepherd whistles softly while guiding sheep across open ground. The smell of newly baked bread mixes with the scent of damp earth warming beneath the early sun. Life moves gently onward. Few people passing the workshop realize that inside, one of the largest vessels the village has seen in many seasons is slowly taking shape. By mid-morning the grain jar reaches nearly to Hori's shoulders. He steps back in amazement. Yesterday it seemed large. Today it seems almost enormous. He slowly walks around it. The wide body curves gracefully toward the narrow opening. The surface remains smooth despite its size. It almost appears to have grown naturally from the earth. Not built. Grown. Mina notices the boy's expression. What do you see? Hori thinks carefully. I don't see clay anymore. What do you see? I see the harvest. The older craftsmen smile. The answer pleases them. Hori continues quietly. I see grain. I see a family opening it during winter. I see children carrying bowls to it. He gently places one hand upon the cool surface. It already belongs somewhere. Mina nods. That is when you know a vessel has found its shape. The work continues for another hour. Then, once again, Mina raises his hand. Everyone stops immediately. The jar has reached the height planned for today. Any higher would ask too much from the lower walls before they have fully settled. The vessel now stands nearly as tall as Hori himself. Its broad shoulders catch the soft morning light. The smooth red-brown clay seems almost warm beneath the sun. Together, the craftsmen slowly circle the great jar one final time, studying every curve, every seam, every gentle line. Satisfied that it has grown exactly as it should, Mina carefully covers it once more with damp linen, knowing that tomorrow would bring the final shaping of its graceful neck and strong rim, the delicate finishing touches that would prepare it for the most dangerous stage of its entire life, the long, patient journey into the waiting fire, where earth would finally become stone like pottery beneath the careful watch of every craftsman in the workshop. The damp linen settles gently over the great grain jar once again. Its broad shape becomes only a quiet outline beneath the cloth, like a sleeping giant resting in the cool shade of the workshop. No one disturbs it after that. The vessel has done enough for one morning. Now it must simply rest. Mina often says that clay works even while people sleep. It grows stronger. It settles. It quietly prepares itself for the next careful touch. Many lessons in the workshop are learned by doing. Others are learned by waiting. The craftsmen return to their ordinary work. The large merchant's order still requires dozens of smaller vessels, and each day that passes must bring steady progress. There is comfort in familiar routines. The potter's wheels begin turning again. One after another. The deep stone discs rotate with slow confidence, polished smooth by years of faithful use. The sound fills the workshop like a calm heartbeat. Round and round. Never hurried. Never stopping for long. Hori needs another mound of clay. His hands have grown noticeably stronger during the past few months. When he first arrived, the clay often pushed back against him. Now he understands how much pressure to use. How much water to add. How long to fold and press before the mixture becomes perfectly smooth. The clay still teaches him every day. But now it speaks a language he can slowly understand. As he works, he notices tiny footprints near the doorway. The workshop cat has returned. She stretches slowly before walking inside with quiet confidence. The morning sun warms her gray fur, giving it a soft silver glow. She pauses beside a large water jar and drinks carefully from a shallow bowl left nearby. No one remembers who first began leaving water for her. Perhaps Mina. Perhaps one of the older craftsmen. Perhaps it simply happened one hot summer afternoon many years ago. Now it has become another quiet tradition. The cat finishes drinking and slowly wanders between the shelves. She pauses beside the great covered grain jar. Her ears twitch. She sniffs the damp linen for a moment. Finding nothing particularly interesting, she continues on her slow journey before curling into her favorite place beneath the carving bench. Within moments she is asleep once more. The older craftsmen smile. She trusts the workshop. Mina nods. So do we. Outside, sunlight grows warmer. The village has become fully awake. A group of women passes carrying woven baskets filled with fresh figs gathered from nearby trees. The sweet scent briefly drifts into the workshop. Soon afterward, a fisherman walks by carrying several freshly caught tilapia hanging neatly from a wooden pole balanced across his shoulders. The fish still shine faintly with drops of river water. He offers a cheerful greeting. The craftsmen return it with warm smiles before continuing their work. Everyone in the village depends upon one another. The potter needs the farmer. The farmer needs the basket weaver. The basket weaver needs the fisherman. The fisherman needs the carpenter. The carpenter needs the potter. No household stands alone. Like the coils of a great jar, each life quietly supports another. As the morning continues, the oldest craftsman prepares a small lesson for Hori. He reaches toward one of the shelves and carefully lifts down 3 nearly identical bowls. At first glance they appear exactly alike. He places them side by side upon a wooden table. "Tell me what you see." Hori studies them. "They are bowls." The old man smiles patiently. "Look again." The apprentice leans closer. The first bowl has slightly thicker walls. The second feels lighter when he carefully lifts it. The third has a wider rim. He begins noticing tiny differences. The old craftsman nods with quiet approval. The first will keep food warm a little longer. He gently touches the thick wall. The second uses less clay. He smiles. It is lighter to carry. Then he points toward the third. The wide rim helps when mixing dough. Hori looks surprised. They all look the same. They do. The old man gently stacks the bowls. But every choice a potter makes changes how people use the vessel. The apprentice runs one finger along the smooth edge of the widest bowl. He had never imagined that something as simple as the shape of a rim could matter. Yet now it seems obvious. Every curve has a purpose. Every thickness carries meaning. Nothing is accidental. Mina quietly listens while shaping another water jar. He remembers learning exactly the same lesson many years earlier. His father had often repeated one simple thought. A beautiful pot that does not serve its purpose is only half finished. That sentence stayed with him through every season of his life. Beauty matters. But usefulness matters too. The finest vessels quietly carry both together. By late morning, the warm breeze from the Nile grows stronger. It slips through the workshop, gently stirring the hanging linen cloths. The smell of wet clay mixes with fresh river air. Somewhere outside, reeds sway softly beside the water. Their gentle rustling becomes another peaceful sound woven into the day's work. Hori steps outside for a moment to refill the workshop's water jars. Balancing 2 empty clay vessels across a wooden shoulder pole, he begins the familiar walk toward the river. The path has become almost second nature. His feet know every bend, every smooth stone, every patch of soft earth. As he approaches the Nile, he notices several children playing near the shallow bank. They float tiny reed boats upon the gentle current. Each little boat carries a single palm leaf standing upright like a sail. The children laugh quietly whenever the breeze catches the leaf and sends the small boats drifting farther downstream. One little boy waves toward Hori. "Whose jars are those?" "The workshop's." "They're beautiful." Hori smiles proudly. "One day." He pauses. "I hope some of them will be mine." The children nod with complete seriousness. To them, becoming a skilled potter seems every bit as important as becoming a good fisherman or farmer. Every craft earns quiet respect. Hori fills the jars slowly. The cool river water splashes gently against the smooth clay. As he lifts them onto the carrying pole once again, he pauses to watch the Nile. The surface glitters beneath the late morning sun. A fisherman quietly rows his narrow wooden boat along the reeds. White birds stand motionless in the shallows, waiting with endless patience for fish. Nothing about the river appears hurried. Perhaps that is why the potters understand it so well. Both clay and river reward those willing to move slowly. When Hori returns, the workshop is exactly as he left it. The wheels continue turning. Fresh vessels continue appearing. The cat continues sleeping. The great grain jar continues resting peacefully beneath its damp covering. Everything feels wonderfully steady, as though the entire workshop breathes together. The apprentice carefully pours cool water into the large storage vessel standing near the entrance. Tiny drops immediately begin appearing upon its outer surface. He smiles again. The jar is already quietly cooling the water for everyone who will drink from it later. Even while standing still, good pottery continues working. The afternoon is still many hours away, and the workshop settles once more into its calm rhythm. Yet beyond the village, along a quiet stretch of the Nile where broad boats are tied beneath the shade of tamarisk trees, a boat builder is finishing repairs to a wide cargo vessel. Neither he nor the potters know it yet, but before the merchant's great order is complete, that humble river boat would carry dozens of carefully packed jars northward along the slow-moving Nile, beginning another peaceful chapter in the long journey of clay shaped by patient hands. The thought of the river boat lingers quietly in Mina's mind, though he has not yet seen it. Every potter understands that a vessel's journey truly begins only after it leaves the workshop. A jar may spend many careful days taking shape beneath gentle hands, but once it is finished, it becomes part of someone else's daily life. Some will remain in the village. Others will travel along the Nile. A few may journey farther than their makers ever will. The morning slowly moves toward midday. Sunlight pours through the open sides of the workshop, warming the packed earth floor. The smell of fresh clay grows softer as more vessels begin drying on the wooden shelves. Each shelf has become a quiet little neighborhood. Small drinking cups stand together in neat rows. Cooking pots wait beside broad mixing bowls. Slender oil jars rest safely against wooden supports. No vessel touches another. Each has enough space to dry peacefully. Crowding them together would invite accidents. Patience even decides where a pot should rest. Hori carefully walks between the shelves. His steps are slower now than they were when he first came to the workshop. At the beginning, he often worried about moving too slowly. Now he worries only about moving safely. He has learned that a careful craftsman is never truly slow. He simply wastes no movement. The oldest potter notices this change. Without saying anything, he smiles quietly. Some lessons never need praise. They become visible through the hands themselves. Outside, the village grows warm beneath the climbing sun. Women spread freshly washed linen across ropes stretched between palm trunks. The white cloth dances gently whenever the breeze passes. Nearby, two young boys help an elderly man repair a reed fence around his small garden. They hand him fresh bundles one by one. The work is simple, steady, unhurried. Across the dusty road, a basket weaver sits beneath the shade of a sycamore tree. Long reeds rest in neat piles beside him. His fingers move with astonishing calm. Over, under, around, pull, tighten, again. The growing basket slowly widens with every careful movement. Hori pauses to watch. The basket seems to grow almost by itself. The old weaver notices the boy standing nearby. You shape clay. Yes. And I shape reeds. Hori nods. The old man lifts the unfinished basket. It is the same lesson. What lesson? The weaver smiles. If I hurry. He gently bends one reed. This one breaks. He places another into position. If I wait too long, the reed begins drying. This one becomes too stiff. Hori laughs softly. It sounds like clay. The old man laughs as well. Perhaps all good work sounds alike. The apprentice carries those words back to the workshop. Perhaps every craftsman, no matter what he creates, spends his life learning the same quiet truths. Patience, care, attention, respect for the material. Inside, Mina prepares another group of storage jars. The merchant's order has begun filling nearly every corner of the workshop. Rows that once held only a few finished pieces now stand crowded with carefully spaced vessels at different stages of drying. Some still shine with moisture. Others have become pale and firm. A few are nearly ready for polishing. The workshop itself seems fuller than ever before. Yet somehow it never feels crowded. Everything has its place. Every tool returns to the same hook. Every cloth is folded after use. Every paddle rests upon the same shelf. Years of quiet habit keep the workshop peaceful. Even when the work increases. Near one wall stands a large basket filled with smooth river stones collected over many seasons. Hori has always wondered why so many are needed. Today he finally asks. Mina kneels beside the basket. He slowly lifts one stone after another. Each feels different. Some are round. Some are flat. Others fit comfortably into the palm. He hands one to Hori. What do you notice? It is smooth. What else? It feels heavy. Mina nods. This one is good for polishing. He selects another. This one helps shape large curves. Another. This one reaches inside narrow necks. Hori turns the stones over in his hands. To anyone else they might appear ordinary. To the potters they are trusted companions. Each has earned its place through years of faithful work. Some stones are older than anyone in the workshop. Perhaps Mina's grandfather once held them. Perhaps even earlier hands polished countless vessels with these same quiet tools. The apprentice suddenly understands why none of the old stones are ever thrown away. They have become part of the craft itself. As noon approaches, the heat settles over the village. The bright Egyptian sun washes every wall with warm light. Outside, fewer people walk the dusty paths. Those who do carry broad woven hats or wrap linen cloth around their heads. Even the goats seek patches of shade beneath trees. The birds grow quieter. Inside the workshop, however, the work continues. The reed roof keeps the air pleasantly cool. A breeze slips through from the river every few minutes. The craftsmen pause briefly to drink water. The large cooling jar has done its work well. Each cup feels wonderfully refreshing. The water tastes clean, fresh, cool enough to ease tired hands and warm throats. Hori slowly drinks. He gently runs his hand across the outside of the water jar. Tiny droplets cover its surface once again. The vessel quietly performs its duty without anyone asking it to. He smiles. Perhaps people should try to live that way too. Doing good work quietly, without needing praise. The afternoon meal is simple. Fresh bread still warm from the morning oven. A bowl of lentils cooked slowly with onions, dates, a few figs. Olive oil poured into a shallow clay dish for dipping bread. The craftsmen sit together beneath the deepest shade. Conversation drifts gently from one memory to another. The oldest potter remembers a winter many years ago when cold winds from the north lasted for weeks. Drying pottery had taken twice as long. Everyone had learned patience in a different way. Another craftsman remembers a flood season when the Nile left behind clay so fine that shaping bowls almost felt effortless. Each season brings its own lessons. No year is exactly like the one before it. After eating, Hori quietly sweeps the workshop floor. Small curls of dried clay gather into neat piles. He saves every clean piece that can still be mixed back into fresh clay. Nothing useful is wasted. Not even the smallest fragment. Mina watches him work. You are becoming careful. Hori looks up. I am trying. The older potter nods. Trying every day becomes becoming. The apprentice repeats the sentence silently in his mind. Trying every day becomes becoming. It feels like another lesson worth remembering. Outside, a light breeze returns from the Nile. Palm leaves whisper overhead. The afternoon sun begins its slow journey westward. Long before anyone notices, the shadows start growing just a little longer. The day quietly turns toward evening. Inside the workshop, the great grain jar waits beneath its linen covering for one final night before its elegant neck and rim will be completed. Around it, dozens of smaller vessels continue drying peacefully on their shelves, each one moving a little closer to the great firing that now occupied every craftsman's thoughts. Soon the careful work of shaping would give way to the equally careful work of preparing fire, stacking wood, arranging pottery, and trusting the ancient partnership between clay, air, and flame that had served Egyptian potters beside the Nile for countless generations. The afternoon slowly settles into evening. The bright light that filled the workshop only a short while ago becomes softer with every passing moment. Sunbeams entering through the reed roof turn from brilliant gold to a gentle ember, wrapping every shelf, every tool, and every unfinished vessel in a warm and peaceful glow. The craftsmen continue working. No one glances toward the sun. No one watches the shadows. Their hands already know what time of day it is. The light itself quietly tells them. One by one, the smaller bowls are lifted from the drying shelves. Each is turned slowly in careful hands. The rims are examined. The bases are checked. Any tiny grain of sand that found its way onto the surface is gently brushed away with a soft piece of linen. Nothing is overlooked. A bowl that carries a family's evening meal deserves the same care as a vessel meant for a wealthy household. The older craftsmen have always believed this. Useful things deserve honest workmanship. Mina carefully lifts a small oil flask. Its neck is long and graceful. The opening is narrow enough to pour precious oil without wasting a single drop. He gently rubs the surface with a smooth river stone. Back and forth. Small circles. Again. Again. The soft reddish clay slowly develops a quiet shine beneath his patient hands. The polishing takes time. More time than many people would imagine. Yet the result is worth every careful movement. A smooth surface is easier to clean. It feels pleasant to hold. It reflects the warm light of an oil lamp during quiet evenings. Beauty and usefulness continue walking side by side. Nearby, Hori watches closely. He notices something new. Mina never presses the stone too hard. He lets its own weight do most of the work. The apprentice tries the same movement upon a practice bowl. At first, he pushes too firmly. The stone catches slightly. The surface becomes uneven. He stops immediately. Mina kneels beside him. Feel. Hori places his fingertips upon the clay. It is rough. Yes. Why? I pushed. Mina smiles gently. You asked the clay to obey. The apprentice lowers his eyes. What should I do? Invite it? Hori laughs softly. It sounds strange. It does. The older potter picks up the stone again. He places it lightly upon the bowl. The movement becomes almost effortless. No force. Only steady rhythm. The polished section slowly begins shining. The clay likes gentle company. Hori nods. He tries again. This time the stone glides quietly. The surface grows smoother beneath every slow pass. There. Mina smiles. You are listening now. The apprentice feels a quiet happiness. It is not excitement. It is the gentle satisfaction that comes when patient practice finally begins making sense. Outside, the village prepares for evening. Smoke rises from cooking fires in soft blue ribbons. Women grind herbs using smooth stone bowls. The scent of coriander, garlic, and onions drifts through the warm air. Children help carry fresh water home before darkness arrives. Some balance small clay jars against their hips. Others proudly carry little cups made especially for their small hands. Many of those cups came from this very workshop. The thought pleases Hori. Perhaps one of the children passing outside drinks each morning from a cup he helped shape. The village lives quietly through the work of many hands. Along the road, an elderly shepherd slowly returns with his flock. The sheep move calmly, stopping now and then to nibble the last fresh patches of grass before entering their familiar pen. Tiny bells hanging from a few collars create soft musical notes that drift across the evening air. Nothing feels hurried. Even the animals seem content to move at the gentle pace of the fading day. Inside the workshop, the great grain jar remains untouched. Several times Hori glances toward it. He cannot help himself. Tomorrow they will shape the neck. Tomorrow the vessel will finally reveal its complete form. It almost feels as though the great jar is sleeping before an important journey. The oldest craftsman notices the boy looking. It is teaching you. Hori turns. How? By waiting. The apprentice smiles. It teaches that lesson often. The old man laughs quietly. It is the first lesson. And the last. As the afternoon fades, another familiar visitor appears. It is Beck, the elderly farmer whose old family cup had been carefully repaired the previous day. He carries no broken pottery today. Instead, he brings a woven basket covered with fresh linen. Inside are ripe figs gathered from his small orchard. I thought the workshop should taste the harvest before the harvest arrives. The craftsmen thank him warmly. The figs are soft and wonderfully sweet. They share them equally. No one takes more than another. The oldest potter quietly sets aside one for Hori before the boy returns from fetching more water. Small acts of kindness often pass unnoticed. Yet they become part of daily life just as surely as shaping clay. Beck sits beneath the shade for a while. He watches the wheels turning. After many peaceful minutes he says softly, "When I was young." Everyone listens. I believe the strongest people were the ones who could lift the heaviest loads. He smiles toward Mina. Now I think the strongest people are those who never grow tired of doing careful work. The workshop falls comfortably silent. The words settle gently in everyone's thoughts. Even Hori repeats them quietly inside his mind. Never grow tired of doing careful work. Perhaps that is strength. Not loud strength. Quiet strength. The kind that grows a little every ordinary day. Beck finishes his fig and slowly rises. Before leaving, he places one weathered hand upon the covered grain jar. I hope this one serves many families. Mina nods. So do I. The old farmer walks home beneath the golden evening light, his long shadow stretching across the dusty road behind him. The workshop gradually becomes quieter. The last few bowls are placed carefully upon their shelves. Tools are washed. Water jars are covered for the night. The smooth polishing stones are returned to their basket. Hori carefully sweeps the floor one final time. Tiny curls of dry clay gather neatly into one corner where they will be saved for tomorrow. Nothing useful is forgotten. Nothing valuable is wasted. Outside, the western sky begins filling with deep shades of orange and rose. Palm trees become dark silhouettes against the fading light. The Nile reflects the changing colors like polished copper. A cool breeze once again arrives from the river. It slips quietly through the workshop, gently stirring the damp linen covering the great grain jar. For just a moment, the cloth rises slightly before settling once more. Almost as though the vessel beneath it has taken a slow, peaceful breath. Mina notices. He smiles. Tomorrow, he whispers softly. No one answers. No answer is needed. Everyone understands. Tomorrow the great vessel will finally receive its graceful neck and carefully shaped rim, becoming complete for the very first time. Yet all the craftsmen also know that completion does not mean the work is finished. The most uncertain days still lie ahead, for soon every bowl, every cooking pot, every water jar, and the magnificent grain vessel itself would face the quiet trial of fire, where patience, careful preparation, and a little hope would decide whether months of peaceful labor emerged stronger than ever or quietly returned to dust beside the eternal Nile. Morning returns with the same quiet grace it has offered for countless generations. Long before the sun lifts itself above the eastern horizon, the Nile is already awake. The river flows through the gentle darkness without asking for attention. Small ripples catch the fading light of the stars, while clusters of reeds sway softly whenever a cool breeze passes over the water. The village slowly stirs. A rooster calls somewhere beyond the fields. Another answers from farther away. Soon the familiar sounds of another peaceful day begin to gather. A wooden door opens. A goat shakes its ears. Someone sweeps the ground outside a small home with a broom made from bundled palm fibers. Nothing happens quickly. Everything arrives in its own gentle time. Inside his home, Mina wakes before the first rays of sunlight reach the walls. He sits quietly for a moment, listening. The silence before work has become one of his favorite parts of every day. It reminds him that every craft begins in stillness. He washes his face with cool water from a clay jar and quietly thanks the unknown hands that shaped it years ago. Every morning begins with the work of another potter. His wife places fresh bread into a small woven basket. The smell fills the room. Warm grain. A hint of smoke from the baking oven. Simple food. Honest food. Their daughter is still asleep, her small blanket rising and falling with each slow breath. Mina smiles before stepping outside into the cool air. The eastern sky has begun turning pale blue. Thin bands of soft pink stretch above the distant desert hills. Palm trees stand perfectly still, their dark shapes reflected in the quiet canals leading away from the Nile. As he walks toward the workshop, he notices farmers already making their way toward the fields. One carries a wooden hoe across his shoulder. Another gently guides two oxen along the dusty road. The animals know the path well. They walk without needing encouragement. Years of repeating the same journey have made every step familiar. The workshop appears peaceful in the early light. Its mud brick walls still hold the coolness of the night. The reed roof glows softly beneath the growing dawn. Mina reaches the doorway and pauses. For just a moment, he simply looks inside. Rows of pottery rest exactly where they were left. The great grain jar remains covered beneath its damp linen. Everything feels calm. Everything feels ready. Soon Hori arrives. This morning he does not hurry. Yesterday's lessons remain fresh in his thoughts. The clay will wait. The jar has waited many days already. It deserves another few quiet moments. He greets Mina with a respectful smile. Good morning. It is. They stand together outside the workshop for a short while, watching the sunrise spread slowly across the village. Golden light reaches the tallest palms first. Then the rooftops. Then the dusty paths. At last it slips gently through the open sides of the workshop. The day has begun. The other craftsmen arrive one by one. As always, each person quietly prepares his tools before beginning any work. Water is poured into shallow bowls. Wooden paddles are arranged neatly. Smooth polishing stones are lifted from their basket. Fresh cloths are dampened. Nothing feels ceremonial. These small routines simply help the hands remember what to do. Finally Mina walks toward the great grain jar. The workshop grows naturally quieter. Even the potter's wheels remain still for a few moments. Everyone understands that today marks an important step. He carefully folds back the damp linen. Morning light touches the broad shoulders of the vessel. The clay has settled beautifully during the night. The walls are strong, smooth, balanced. Not a single crack interrupts their graceful curve. Hori slowly circles the jar. Standing beside it now, he realizes it is nearly as tall as Mina's chest. It seems impossible that such a large vessel began only as a simple lump of river clay. Mina places both hands gently upon the rim. This is where the jar begins speaking. Hori tilts his head. I thought it had been speaking all along. It has. The older potter smiles. But now it tells us how it wishes to finish. The apprentice listens carefully. He has learned not to dismiss such words. They often make sense only after many hours of work. Fresh coils of clay are prepared. Unlike those forming the broad body, these are slightly smaller. The neck must be lighter. Too much weight above would place unnecessary strain upon the shoulders of the vessel. The first coil is carefully placed. Mina presses it gently into the rim. His thumbs smooth the joint. His fingers guide the clay inward. Very slowly, the wide opening begins narrowing. The change is subtle. Almost invisible at first. Another coil follows. Again the shape changes. Little by little. Layer by layer. Nothing dramatic. Only steady progress. Hori watches every movement. He notices that Mina now uses far less water than before. The clay is firmer. Too much moisture could weaken the delicate upper section. Every stage asks for different care. The older craftsman quietly continues shaping smaller vessels while occasionally glancing toward the great jar. They know this work well. Still, it never loses its quiet beauty. Watching a large vessel slowly reach completion remains satisfying even after many years. As the neck rises, Mina begins gently drawing it inward with slow pressure from both hands. The curve becomes elegant. Neither too narrow nor too wide. A comfortable hand will one day fit easily inside while filling the jar with grain. The opening will protect its contents from dust and insects while remaining practical for daily use. Every curve serves a purpose. Beauty follows usefulness. Not the other way around. Hori finally speaks. It looks different now. It is. It feels. He searches for the right word. Finished. Mina nods softly. Almost. The rim still waits. The rim may appear simple, yet every experienced potter knows its importance. It is the part touched most often. Hands lift the jar there. Lids rest upon it. Ropes sometimes pass around it during transport. A weak rim can shorten the life of an otherwise perfect vessel. Mina rolls one final strip of clay. It is thicker than the others. Carefully he lays it around the opening. Then begins folding and smoothing it into a rounded edge. Again. Again. Tiny adjustments. Barely visible. Yet each one matters. The rim slowly becomes firm and comfortable beneath the hand. Hori reaches out after receiving permission. He gently runs his fingertips around the finished edge. It feels smooth. Strong. Pleasant. Nothing sharp. Nothing uneven. The vessel seems complete. For several quiet moments, no one speaks. The morning breeze drifts through the workshop. The scent of wet clay mixes with fresh river air. Outside, birds sing among the palms. Inside, the great grain jar stands proudly in the soft light. Not because it is large. Not because it is beautiful. But because it has become exactly what it was meant to be. Mina steps back. The other craftsmen slowly gather around. Each studies the vessel from a different angle. One checks the curve of the shoulders. Another examines the symmetry of the neck. The oldest potter gently taps the side with one finger. The sound is low and even. He smiles. It is ready to rest. Hori looks surprised. Again. The workshop fills with quiet laughter. Mina places the damp linen back over the vessel. Every important thing deserves one more day of patience. The apprentice smiles. He should have known. The jar had taught him that lesson from the very beginning. As the craftsmen return to their wheels and the calm rhythm of another working day resumes, the completed grain jar begins its final period of drying. Soon its surface would harden enough to receive careful polishing, and after that would come the task every potter respected most, the slow arrangement of dozens of vessels inside the great firing place, where the smallest mistake in stacking, spacing, or feeding the flames could undo weeks of gentle labor in a single long night beside the quiet waters of the Nile. The great grain jar now stands complete beneath its damp linen covering. For the first time since the clay was gathered from the quiet banks of the Nile, no more shaping is needed. No fresh coils will be added. No gentle pressure from skilled hands will change its graceful form. Now another kind of work begins. The work of waiting. Inside the workshop, the calm rhythm continues exactly as before. The potter's wheels turn without interruption. Round and round. Steady as the river. The merchant's order still includes many smaller vessels, and every pair of hands remains busy. Mina reminds Hori of something he once struggled to understand himself. A workshop never stops because one jar is finished. The apprentice nods. Yesterday, the great vessel had seemed like the center of the entire world. Today it quietly joins the long rows of drying pottery. Every finished piece simply becomes another peaceful part of the workshop. That, too, is a lesson. Good work does not ask to be admired. It quietly takes its place beside other good work. The morning sun climbs higher. Warm light fills every corner beneath the reed roof. The smell of fresh clay slowly changes as more vessels begin drying. Wet earth becomes something softer. Warmer. The scent reminds Hori of the fields after the Nile flood waters slowly disappear. There is life hidden inside both. He begins arranging newly finished bowls onto fresh reed mats. Each bowl must sit upside down so its base dries evenly. He leaves enough space between them for the breeze to move freely. The older craftsmen notice his careful spacing. No correction is needed. His eyes have begun measuring without thinking. Nearby, Mina prepares a shallow basin filled with very fine clay mixed almost as smoothly as thick cream. The mixture is richer than ordinary slip. Its color is a deep reddish brown. Hori watches with curiosity. Is that for the big jar? Mina smiles. It is. The apprentice kneels beside him. I thought it was already finished. The shape is finished. Mina slowly stirs the mixture with a flat wooden paddle. The surface still has one more story to tell. The large grain jar is uncovered once again. Morning light slides gently across its broad shoulders. The clay has dried enough to accept its final coating. Mina dips a folded piece of soft linen into the red slip. He removes only a small amount. Too much would leave streaks. Too little would fail to cover the surface evenly. With slow movements, he begins wiping the slip across the jar. Long strokes. Even pressure. The reddish color deepens little by little. The vessel seems warmer. Richer. Almost glowing beneath the sunlight. Hori notices how carefully each stroke overlaps the previous one. No lines remain. No patches are missed. The coating becomes perfectly even. When Mina finishes one section, he quietly steps back before beginning the next. He studies the light. The reflection tells him whether the layer is smooth. The jar teaches him where another gentle touch is needed. Nothing is guessed. Everything is observed. Hours pass peacefully. No one grows impatient. The older craftsman continues shaping cooking pots. A younger helper carries fresh water from the Nile. The cat wanders slowly between the shelves before finding another comfortable place for her afternoon sleep. Outside, village life unfolds with familiar calm. Women spread freshly harvested barley across woven mats to dry beneath the warm sun. Children gather fallen dates beneath tall palms. A donkey patiently carries bundles of reeds toward a basket maker's home. Everywhere, quiet work continues. The village breathes through many different crafts, each one supporting another. Near midday, a cool breeze arrives from the river. It gently touches the freshly coated grain jar. Mina smiles. Good. Hori looks toward the opening. The breeze helps. It does. It dries the slip. Slowly. The older potter nods toward the doorway. The Nile has always been one of our helpers. The apprentice steps outside. He looks toward the wide river stretching through the land. Its calm surface sparkles beneath the sun. He suddenly realizes how many gifts it quietly gives. Clay. Water. Fish. Rich soil. Cool breezes. Reeds. Transportation. Without the Nile, there would be no workshop. No village. Perhaps not even this peaceful way of life. He stands quietly for a long moment, watching a narrow fishing boat glide downstream. The rower moves his oars with slow confidence. Each stroke is gentle. There is no splashing. Only smooth movement across the water. The boat seems almost to drift by itself. Returning inside, Hori notices the oldest craftsman polishing several small drinking cups. Unlike the large jar, these tiny vessels require stones of different shapes. Some reach easily inside the narrow walls. Others smooth only the outside. Every tool has its own purpose. Every vessel asks for slightly different care. The old man notices Hori watching. He hands him one of the polishing stones. Feel it? The apprentice rolls it across his palm. Years of use have made it wonderfully smooth. Almost silky. How old is it? The craftsman chuckles softly. I do not know. My teacher used it. He said his teacher used it. The apprentice smiles. So many hands. The old man nods. The stone remembers all of them. For a while, neither speaks. Only the quiet sound of polishing fills the room. Back and forth. Small circles. Patient hands turning simple clay into something that feels gentle to hold. By afternoon, the great grain jar has dried enough for its final polishing. This work cannot be hurried. Mina chooses his favorite smooth river stone. It fits perfectly into his hand. Perhaps he has held it thousands of times. Perhaps tens of thousands. He begins at the shoulder of the jar. The stone moves slowly. Back and forth. Small circles. The surface gradually changes. The soft red slip begins reflecting the afternoon light with a gentle satin glow. Not bright. Not shiny. Simply alive. Hori kneels nearby, quietly polishing the lower half. His movements have become steadier over the past weeks. Mina watches without interrupting. The apprentice no longer needs constant guidance. He has begun trusting his own hands. That trust grows only through practice. The two work together in comfortable silence. Sometimes they polish the same section from different sides. Sometimes one pauses while the other continues. Their rhythm becomes almost like breathing. Outside, the afternoon sun slowly begins its journey toward the western horizon. Long shadows stretch beneath the palm trees. The village grows quieter as people prepare for evening. Inside the workshop, the great grain jar slowly reveals its finished beauty. The polished surface catches the warm golden light. Its graceful neck flows naturally into broad shoulders. Its wide body promises to protect many seasons of harvested grain. It is both practical and beautiful. Exactly as it should be. The oldest craftsman steps forward. He gently places both hands upon the vessel. Then he closes his eyes for a brief moment. Not in ceremony. Not in prayer. Simply in quiet appreciation. After many years, he still enjoys seeing a fine piece of work completed with care. He opens his eyes and smiles toward Hori. You helped make something that may outlive all of us. The apprentice lowers his eyes modestly. He feels neither pride nor embarrassment. Only gratitude. Gratitude for the chance to learn. Gratitude for patient teachers. Gratitude for the quiet river that gave them clay. As evening approaches, the finished grain jar is moved with extraordinary care to the special area reserved for vessels awaiting firing. Around it stand dozens of bowls, cooking pots, water jars, oil flasks, and storage vessels, all slowly drying beneath the gentle breeze. Within a few days, when every piece had reached exactly the right firmness, the workshop would become quieter than ever, for all attention would turn toward building the great firing stack, a slow and careful puzzle of clay and firewood where every vessel's place would matter, and where the wisdom of generations would guide every steady hand through the longest and most watchful night of the season. Several peaceful days pass. The workshop grows quieter than it has been for many weeks. The shaping is finished. The polishing is complete. Now the craftsmen prepare for the task that cannot be rushed and cannot be repeated in exactly the same way twice. The firing. Before sunrise, they begin carrying the finished pottery toward the great kiln. Each vessel is lifted with both hands. The smallest cups travel first. Then the bowls. Cooking pots. Water jars. Oil flasks. Finally, when almost everything else has been arranged, the great grain jar is ready. 4 craftsmen gather around it. Strong ropes woven from flax are wrapped gently beneath its rounded shoulders. No one speaks loudly. No one hurries. They lift together. One slow breath. One careful step. Then another. Hori walks beside them, watching every